Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to never miss a video from us.
Hello and welcome to another power-packed episode of Expert Interview Series. Today, we are joined by our guest, Kriti Rana, a seasoned change management expert and strategic leader with almost 2 decades of experience in corporate, primarily driving sales, learning and development, product development, business transformation, strategy design, and leading large-scale change initiatives across financial service landscape. Beyond her corporate leadership, Kriti is an ICF recognized, CTT trained coach dedicated to empowering professionals. Her coaching focuses on career transition, executive presence, strategic thinking, and amplifying leadership influence, guiding individuals not just to grow but truly to transform. She is also the author of an upcoming book on career transition, which draws from her personal journey and professional experiences to offer practical wisdom for navigating change with confidence. Kriti, it's a real privilege to have you with us today. We're excited to explore your journey, insights, and the impact you are creating.
Thank you so much, Pooja, and it is absolutely my pleasure to be on this platform today.
We begin with the first and the most important question. What inspired you to explore leadership and career coaching alongside your corporate journey?
Well, Pooja, let me be very honest. What really started this journey were the conversations which I had during my transformation experiences. So primarily what happens is when you're doing these large-scale transformation and change management, typically it ends up a lot of people going through a lot of emotional cycle, and hence a lot of one-on-one interactions about the fears that people have, one-on-one interactions about their ambitions, about a feeling of feeling stuck, or it can be as simple as that I don't feel confident enough. I think those are the things which showed me wherein, it's not the talent primarily which holds people back. It is the lack of perspective. And, this is where my entire coaching journey started. That how can we guide and create a space for such talented people to reflect, feel confident, and also understand that what is it that they need to do next. So yeah, that's how the entire journey started.
And of course, we need someone who we can confide with, share our experiences, what are things that are set back in their career transitions, and even personally as well.
Absolutely. So, basically coaching was never a detour from corporate. It is only helping me enhance and deepen the corporate exposure further.
I think you're beautifully helping people out in their career transitions.
Hopefully, yeah.
So, as we know that you've led major transformation programs, what is the one leadership mindset shift that's essential for navigating large-scale change today?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and even so in today's day and age when there are multiple generations working together. So, one of the posts I had written on one of the platforms was around this, that how different generations are currently working, how they are so different, like Gen X, Millennial, Gen Z. Everybody needs to exist. One is the spine of the corporate world in general, another is the future. And, one of the remarkable things which came around out of this entire thing was the difference in approach and how we are moving from control to co-creation. So basically, there was a time in my, corporate journey only when control would actually do the magic. Wherein if you get the right project plans, if you get the right structure, if you get the right instructions, there was a set of, employees who would generally go ahead and do that to the T. Not really too much of fuss around the entire thing, just follow the plan to the team. But now things have changed. People and the behavior that we have seen generally is people participate more into any form of change management if they understand that the change is done along with them and not to them. And that's a very fine line which is there, when you just go ahead and give a generic script, a generic project charter or a plan to people. These are emotional beings, and they at times take it to be a change being done to them and not along with them. And that is extremely, extremely, extremely important. And when change happens, there may be so much of fear around the entire thing. And that fear, if not tackled with, can actually impact the long-term impact of the change that we are trying to do. So with control, yes, change can happen, but with co-creation, the change will last.
As you rightly said, it is now shifted from instructional to constructional way of implementing change. But on because you're dealing with so many generations all together, so how
Yeah.
difficult it is to manage, the Gen Z and the millennials. Of course, it's easy, but for the Gen Zs, how difficult it is.
Well, I'll tell you, I've had a very different experience with Gen Z in general. I think I love the energy. I love the vibe, as they would call it, and I just love the objectivity in the entire thing. I think the entire any person who is genuinely interested in co-creation would love the company of a Gen Z in any of the programs, projects, or change, because yes, they are objective about the change for sure.
And they want to add constantly.
Yeah, and they want to be heard. They want to see what difference they are making. They want to be valued. And in case if there's an input coming from them, they would like to see that how objectively did we go about it. It's not about, more like telling them what to do. It's about learning along with them.
So I think you've given a fair idea how the mindset shift has happened and how things are, being co-created now.
Yeah.
Now, moving on to the next question. You have worked extensively in communication and change management. What is the one common mistake organization make when rolling out change?
Well, and that would be an extension to my earlier question and the answer that I shared there. I think one of the most common things that we underestimate during change is the emotional side of change. Now, what happens is that while, in leadership, we believe that there is a particular process which is undergoing change or particular structure where we are doing any form of restructuring or any form of, it's just as basic as an SOP that we are changing. But the problem with change is that it doesn't fail when the Gantt chart is not working or a project plan is not working. It actually happens when people don't feel safe, when people don't feel heard, don't feel seen. And that's the entire emotional side of change that I'm talking about. Now, typically in today's day and age in corporates, that we primarily work on, change is not a process, it is an experience. And that experience needs to be curated. It cannot be told. It has to be curated. It's how people feel. It's how people believe in the change that you're trying to drive. And that is something which will define the success of the change that we're trying to bring. So yes, one of the most thing that we are challenged with at times is the emotional aspect of change.
And as you rightly said, the change has to be experienced. You can't just, force it on them.
No, absolutely. And if the organization spend just half the energy and, time that they spend in creating the structures in people, the change will be so beautiful and so easy.
Ma'am, you've explained it beautifully. As you deal with so many professionals day in, day out, what do professionals often overlook when navigating growth or career transition within their organization?
This is my favorite question. And I love speaking about it. In fact, my upcoming book also talks a lot about this entire thing. The biggest thing that a lot of us ignore in the process and in the aggression of growth is internal repositioning. Now, what does internal repositioning means? So you join an organization as an ex-individual. There are a set of experiences that you've been through. There is a set of years of interaction that you've had, and then you grow as an individual. Okay. And what happens is that irrespective of whether you want or you don't want, every individual around you will have an opinion about you. And when you're looking to transition, that is something which really matters. What do people talk about you when you're not in the room? And especially the people who matter, I think that defines an internal positioning. So contrary to the common thought that, I'm doing well, people should be thinking well. Well, it doesn't work like that. So I break it down into certain elements for the ease of the audience to understand. I think the first important part of this internal repositioning is the narrative. As an individual, as a professional, what is the narrative that you're trying to display or trying to create? Now, for example, if I were to share that I am an extremely agile individual, and then there are instances when I've been sitting on emails or sitting on process changes or sitting on turnaround times forever, that doesn't really go well with my narrative. So narrative in corporate world is the reality. Either you create it or somebody else creates it for you. So I think that is my, first takeaway, for all the audience which is there. Own your narrative. Always know that what is one thing that you would want to be known for, and then work towards it. Of course, that doesn't do away with people thinking otherwise, but of course, people who matter, owning your narrative, displaying your behavior in that particular sense, would help you to go a long way. The second thing, which I feel is extremely important, is visibility. And, many times we feel that, and this will, a lot of people who are working outside head office locations would feel with this, that, we're doing so much of work, but why is this promotion not coming to me? Why is it going to my ex-colleague sitting in head office, or sitting closer to the boss, or sitting closer to the stakeholder? And at times there are outliers, irrespective of where they're sitting, they get, growth. And that is where the person has cracked the code of visibility, because that is extremely, extremely important. So first is narrative. Second, visibility. And third is the stakeholder shift. Now, as we grow up the ladder, what happens is that we get multiple stakeholders, and this is like permutation combinations, in every scenario, there's a different permutation which is there. So you need to be aware of how that permutation moves, how that shift happens, and what is the current shift in which you are operating in. So I think that is the third most important component of the entire thing. And fourth is momentum. So when I say momentum, what does that mean? So many of us believe that, okay, the role has come, I want to apply, but I'm not getting hired. Of course, you won't get hired because there is someone out there, your competitor, who has been displaying those traits and those requirements much before the role came in. So the transition does not happen when the role comes in. Transition happens much before that. So so for me, I think the most most overlooked part will be your internal repositioning.
Really clarified the 5 pointers, but it's hard that everybody likes you, who are around you, narrative that you want to set, but not everybody would like the way you are. How do we handle that?
So my question to you, Pooja, would be, why would you want to handle that?
I'm saying you can't be a people pleaser. You are what you are.
But why would you want to handle what people think about you when it comes to everybody? You said everybody might not like me. So why do we want everybody for us to like?
Then, as you said, that important people who, you want that they should value you, as in terms of transition, even though you're working hard, you're showing the skill sets, everything is in place, but still there are some loopholes, like as you said, the narrative. Let's suppose that's not working. What should be done in that case?
Well, okay, so I'll break it down into steps here. Now, for example, and this is purely directional in nature, what works for one might not work for another. This entire conversation is to enable audience to reflect in terms of their scenarios, their ecosystem, what would work best for them. But typically, as you rightly said, everybody cannot like you. It's not humanly possible. We break it down into the stakeholders. So one, do we know who our stakeholders are? Two, do we know what their priorities are? Three, are we taking steps in their priority, in the direction of their priority, to support them with their achievement of their ambitions and goals? Fourth, do they see us doing that? So I don't know a single professional in the organization, if you're working along with them to achieve their goal, would not value you. It is all about, one, understanding what is the larger directional goal for that individual. Second, it is about ensuring that the individual understands that you are working along with them towards that goal. And it is about directing your hard work that you're doing. You can be doing 20 hours of work, But if it is not in the direction in which the organization wants you to, unfortunately, at the end of the day, you can end up being frustrated. The organization might not see any value. It's not about manipulation. It is about directing your energy into something which truly matters.
So that makes sense. I mean, it's your goal should also match with the company's goal.
Absolutely.
Only then the sync will happen.
Absolutely. And if you feel that no, you have something else to be achieved, well, it's not about internal repositioning then. It is about external.
Thank you for clarifying it out.
Sure.
Next question, and I think it's very important. You've worked across roles and industries. How important it is to specialize versus staying versatile?
Well, I would like to remove the word versus from the statement. I think specialization and versatility both are extremely important elements of any professional career. And the sooner we realize it, the better it is. When you start your career, it is all about specialization, because you specialize in MBA HR, MBA marketing, MBA finance, or XYZ, whatever your area of operation is. And as you grow up the ladder, you realize versatility is something which becomes the multiplier. So while everybody is working on their specialization, not everybody is getting up faster to the top, because typically the structure of the organization becomes like this. So the multiplier is something which comes with the versatility. Now, how does it work? I'm a specialist. How can I be versatile? So firstly, versatility does not mean being a generalist. A generalist is not equal to versatility. First, even a generalist, for being versatile, needs to have some specialized skill set. That specialized skill set can be as underrated as stakeholder management. It can be as exclusive as analytical skills. But even a generalist needs to have a niche of the segment. And when we move on towards specialization, specialization is not about rigidity. Because at times we feel that I'm a specialist. Yes, you are a specialist. But if you become rigid, then you are a rigid professional, not a specialist. So it is about leaving that scope for a specialist to evolve, to see the patterns and the ability to connect the dots. Many specialized people, you will see in different organizations, and you will say that, no, the organization doesn't get it, the leaders don't get it. I'm saying I'm a specialist in XYZ field, and this is how we need to operate. Of course, it doesn't sync well because both have different targets. Both are driving different things. And where the specialist individual is losing out is in the ability to connect the dots. And that ability to see patterns, to connect the dots, frankly, comes with versatility. So I would not say, Pooja, it is about choosing either or. I think it is about how do we take both the things together, and am I learning to connect the dots with the sharpest skill that I have. I would want the audience also to understand that what do I mean by this? Like, am I learning to connect the dots with sharpest skill? For that, all of us will have to reflect, what is the sharpest skill that I have? With that skill, am I able to see the bigger picture? Am I able to connect the dots? Am I able to see the patterns? And that's when both the things come hand in hand.
So that's, as you rightly said, and suddenly that stuck in my mind. Jack of all trades, master of none should not be the case. Even
Absolutely.
You are jack of one trade, but you should keep on upskilling and mastering the other trades as well. So
one is mastering the trade, Of course, audience can understand this in this aspect as well, but it is slightly simplifying the concept. So I'll tell you, it's not about mastering every trade. You can't be master of every trade. Like if I'm a specialist in analytics, for example, I cannot really be a specialist in emotional quotient. Maybe I'm just an example. Not all analysts do not have that. But I'm just giving an example between two trades. But does that mean, do I have to master emotional quotient? Do I have to master agility? Do I have to master, XYZ traits? Maybe no. But what I need to master is the ability to step out of that scenario, see the picture, and see how dots connect. That if I'm being told to drive an XYZ initiative in the organization or some analytics activity, why am I being told? What is the why behind that ask? How does that enable the organization? what is it that more I can do in order to position this entire activity that I'm doing in the light where the organization appreciates it better.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Moving on to one of the most important questions. What are the most underrated skills in leadership that you consider in 2025?
Well, currently now, I'll tell you, Pooja, 2025 is going absolutely a new normal way. In fact, from 2020 only, so much of changes happening. World is no longer the stable place in which we operated in, for the longest time of my career. Can you believe in last 5 years, we've already seen a pandemic? We're on the brink of a geopolitical scenario. We were, so there's so much what is happening. And how many of us can say that we've seen all this? It's only last 5 years that we've seen. So disruption is actually the new normal. We talk about disruption, it's not only about technology. Today, every individual I connect with, every person I speak with knows what ChatGPT is, knows what, OpenAI is, knows what is happening where. Nowadays, writing email is no longer a skill set because the entire world is writing similar fluent communication.
5 years old now knows how to operate a ChatGPT. They would ask, give me the answer.
Absolutely. And, communicating what you want to say is for the starters, is not a problem altogether. For somebody who took pride in creating a perfect presentation is no longer a matter of pride. I think every individual earlier who was struggling with that creative bent of mind, that how do I explain the slide better, has access to thought, slide-wise content, and all that is there. Well, that's a different topic altogether, that what kind of prompts are people giving, because the entire intelligence lies in what is the prompting that we're doing there. But what I'm trying to communicate is that a lot is changing, be it technology, be it the organizational, how we are working, health, how many of us heard people in their late 30s and early 40s going through health issues? But that has changed. Geopolitics scenario has changed. So a lot has changed primarily. And for me, the most underrated skill right now is the ability to bounce back. And that's what I call as resilience. And, because, and even, so there's this survey by the Future Jobs, there's a survey for 2030, which says that future of work, which says that resilience is one of the top skill sets which will be required for next 5 years, because things are changing so fast at so many different levels that if you do not know how to bounce back, that will become a limitation. And us, while we try to upskill us on AI, while we are trying to learn how to give the better prompt, while we are trying to learn different languages, but this ability to bounce back when everything changes, I think we need to work more on that aspect.
Many professionals, they talk about tech skills, they talk about leadership skills, but I think this is one of the kind. I think resilience, the ability to bounce back and to adjust with the changing environment is very important.
I would also say that the future does not only belong to the tech savvy, contrary to a normal, thing that we would hear in the corporate corridors. It does not only belong to them. It does belong to people who are more strategically human. And that is a skill set which people will have to think about. They will have to learn, and they will have to implement for a more successful future.
Last and very crucial question. You've seen career stall, shifts, and skyrocket. If you had to change one unspoken rule for corporate growth, what would it be?
Well, apologies to all the managers, because this is one of the most common things which we tell to our teams. I see a lot of, parents telling this to the kids as well. But, it is more about you keep your head down and do your work and let the work speak for yourself. So I believe, it is not entirely as black and white as it gets. There is a gray aspect out there. So, no, the work does not speak for itself. Sometimes it whispers. And when the work whispers, then we need to be the entire microphone around that whispering work. And what does this mean? This means that we need to be visible. That visibility aspect of it, it is no longer a skill set. It is a strategic intent the emotional quotient aspect of it. It is a strategic intent to the entire thing, the strategic communication to let people know what we are doing, how we are doing. Many a times I see so many teams working in isolation, working, the entire night. I come to, I talk to them in the morning, they're working. I talk to them in the night, they're working. Weekend, they're working. Unfortunately, it is not all coming together. And one of the aspects for that is, of course, visibility. That is one of the things which I would like to bust, is that no, all the work does not get, credited. Visibility comes in a long way. But as I say this in the same breath, I would also say that there's one word of caution, that visibility does not always gives you results. Visibility can actually be a landmine at times. But we'll keep it for a separate discussion, because visibility without skill set and visibility without talent can end up into larger trouble than you being working isolated. So, but it is a larger topic for some other session, Pooja. But yes, for me, I think just keeping your head down and working might not be the only go-to. Of course, it is the basic. You need to know your work. You need to work hard. You need to do that. That's a given. But will all that given give you that extra multiplier edge? No. Visibility has to be that multiplier.
Showcase, but don't show off?
Well, there is a very thin line of difference between showcase and show off as well. And so I would rather say that, visibility without credibility would be noise, but visibility with intent, that is strategy. So till the time we have intent and we have the visibility, I think our strategy is strong.
Right, and in the right places and work in the correct direction.
Absolutely.
I have taken my share of learning from you, and hopefully the viewers who are going to watch this, a lot to be taken and from the interview that we have done, a lot of conversation that had hit hard. Hopefully, I personally will be waiting for the book that is going to be published. I think I'll be the first reader to read your book.
Well, that's very encouraging, Pooja. I hope it is helpful. I have tried to cover a lot of nuances around transitions in the book as well, more from my own personal experiences, people around me. So yeah, hoping.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was entirely our pleasure to have you on the platform, and hope this touches many and millions of people who are going to watch this.
Thank you so much, Pooja. You were a lovely host, made me absolutely comfortable, and thank you, audience. Would wish everybody best of luck in their own respective transitions.
Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to never miss a video from us.